Hi everyone, Bernard here with the latest Citizen vlog, and it's my final Citizen vlog of the 2019-2020 season. Please, if you're new to the channel, if you're not subscribed yet, please push that old subscription button and push the notification on these Citizen vlogs are coming out past and present. This is a present one. Obviously I do the past on City's history, so please you can do that, and please tell your friends as well if they're City fans. Right, so this last one, it's a player of the season video, but it's part two because I already, as you know, I already committed myself to the season ending before the lockdown. Because at the end of the day, even if the season had started again, I thought, well, it's not going to be the same, is it? Everyone's different. Players recover from injury, different things, different psychological effects on players, etc. So I've already done a part one. That'll be in the links below. So if you check my little playlist, if you're interested in that, obviously I'll refer to it when I'm doing this, so you obviously know the benefits, who actually finished in the top 5, etc. in my original part one to this. So yeah, you can do that. I'll put the link below, directly below, so just check that. That'll be the first link you can find if you're interested in that once you've listened to this. So here we go. This also includes a little Pep rating, which I don't think I did on part one. I've not gone back and watched it all the way through, but I'm sure I didn't rate Pep for the first one. And also who I won't miss. So who, if they go, I'm not going to miss, to be honest with you. They can go with my gratitude and best wishes, but I certainly won't miss them. And obviously part and parcel of these scores, I think, come into that as well. They've had to play at least, or come on as a meaningful substitute in at least 50% of the game. So we've had 14 games, so they've had to appear in at least 7 or come on as a meaningful substitute. So in other words, they've had time to actually get bedded in, so at least 20 minutes, something like that, to actually do something. I mean, if they come on for 5-10 minutes, it's pointless, really. Players who haven't qualified for this: Aguero, of course. He only had 2 appearances. One of them was as a substitute, and he does average a 6 score on his two on my scores anyway. Otamendi, he only managed 4 appearances as sub and playing the game. He got a good healthy score though, 6.75 out of 10, which is quite high. Zinchenko, he managed 6, so just under the basic 50%, but so he won't qualify on that. So he got an average of 6.5. Sane just made one brief substitute appearance. I didn't even give a rating for him. Bravo made 1 appearance. He's not got a rating. He's not got a rating for that. Just seeing what we did. Yeah, he did get 6. He got a basic 6 anyway from me and the Manchester Evening News, because I'll have a quick fly through the Manchester Evening News ratings as well. Stones only 4 appearances, including sub appearances, an average of 6.25, and Mr. Tommy Doyle just 1 appearance for Mr. Tommy Doyle, so he doesn't sort of qualify for it. Right, so before I do my little ratings, first we'll have a look at Manchester Evening News ratings of these 14 games for part 2 of the season. So that's Simon Pekowski and Stuart Brennan used to split the ratings. One week one guy did it, the other week the other guy did it, so I'll do it as a combined Manchester Evening News player rating. No one scored the less than a minimum of 6. Obviously 6 is my starting score for when I do player rating, so yeah, I assume most people use the same sort of basis. That's just for turning up, putting the shirt on and having a bog standard game. So as far as Simon Pekowski and Stuart Brennan concerned, no one scored less than 6, and there's actually 3 players scored over 7. So obviously in the 14 out of the 14 games. Right, so there's 16 players we're talking about for the M.E.N ratings and my own ratings. We did have 20 for part 1 of this, so as I say, please check that out if you can. Right, at number 16, a very surprising entry at number 16. Just got the basic 6 average, and he played in 8 games or featured, and that was Mr. Cancelo. So obviously that was very surprised. Did surprise me that he was going to be bottom of the pile. So he's our worst player in the 14 games. I've included obviously the FA Cup and the Champions League in this as well. So that's the total games we've played since lockdown. So that was a very, very big surprise, wasn't it? Number 16 on the M.E.N. Number 15, again, another big surprise, Fernandinho, or Ferner. He played 9 games, and he's only averaging 6.33. So not a bad average, but he came in at number 15. Number 14, perhaps not a surprise because he's not had the greatest season before the lockdown either. Bernardo came in at number 14. He played 10 games or featured in 10, and he's got an average of 6.4. So again, not great. I thought he improved. I thought actually Bernardo had improved after the lockdown, to be honest with you. I thought he was certainly showing signs of improvement before the lockdown, but yeah, he was at number 14. Number 13, again, not surprised. He just played the bare minimum 7 though to qualify to get into this rating. That's Mr. Benjamin Mendy. He gets 6.43. He's in 13th place. This is the Manchester Evening News ratings, don't forget. In 12th place, we've got Mr. Garcia, Eric Garcia. He played 9 games, 6.56 he averaged. At number 11, Edison. Played 13 games, so he played it. Obviously, he played one of the most. 6.62 average, again, not too bad. At number 10, so we're into the top 10 now. Jesus played 14 games. So he was, as you can see, 14 games. He was featured or played in every single game after lockdown. Mrs. Jesus, anything to do with Aguero being injured? Probably. 6.64 average. Joint 8th. We've got a joint 8th here. Mahrez and Laporte both played 12 games, so I couldn't split them on the games played. And they both scored 6.67 out of 10. So that's Mr. Mahrez and Laporte. The Evening News couldn't split them up. At number 7, we've got Mr. Gundogan. He played 10 games and gets a rating of 6.7. At number 6, we've got Mr. Rodri. 13 games played, again, only behind Jesus on actual appearances or substitute appearances. 6.77. Into the top 5, right? The number 5, obviously, with few have not mentioned yet, isn't there? At number 5, Mr. Walker. He played 12 games, 6.83. Yeah, that didn't surprise me. Number 4, Sterling. He played 13 games. Second highest again, 6.85. So he didn't quite break the 7, but again, he's up in 4th. So the top 3, who have we not said yet? Well, number 3. Yes, the Stockport Iniesta. We've got at number 3. He played or featured in 12 games, an average is 7.17. So yeah, you can see we've left with 2, aren't we? Which 2 haven't we mentioned? There might be one on the screen behind me there. At number 2, yep. Kevin De Bruyne at number 2. He played 13 games, obviously just missed one or featured in 13 games. 7.46, a healthy score for Mr. Kevin De Bruyne. But who beat Mr. Kevin De Bruyne? Well, is it sentimentality? No, he deserves it because he did have a cracking restart after this break. Mr. David Silva, of course, the legend himself. He played in 10 or featured in 10 games, so not as many as some of the other guys in the top 5, but 7.6 the average as far as the Manchester Evening News is concerned. Sentimentality? No, I wouldn't say so, but then again, how's he rating my ratings? So there you go. Top 5, Walker 5, Sterling 4, Foden 3, KDB 2 and Silva 1. Right, so there you go. What about my ratings? Well, again, there's none less than 6, so similar to the M.E.N, so they all got the basic minimum of turning up. No one was that bad that they lost points on average. But I've got 4 players over 7, and I'm usually quite strict on the scores. I've given 4 of my players over 7. There's only 3 on the Manchester Evening News. As you can see from the others, Jesus was the only guy to actually appear in every single game, even a couple of substitute appearances. So he played in all 14. 2 as sub. Yeah, there was two games as sub, but he actually played in 12 and came on for a fair amount of the game in 2 games. So he appeared in every game. Edison and Sterling obviously both played in 13 starting lineup, so they didn't come on as subs. They actually played in 13 games themselves. So my top 5 from part 1, if you look back at that, you want to go back and look back at that, but I'll round it up here for you. My top 5, at number 5 was Mahrez, 6.55 average. At number 4 was Aguero. Obviously, this is part 1, don't forget, of the season. 6.61 average. Number 3, KDB, 6.68 average. At number 2 was Mr. Foden, 6.71 average. And at number 1, you guessed it, Fernandinho. Number 1 was my number 1. That was my player of the season for part 1 of the 1920 season. 6.83. So he won it quite comfortably, but a couple of surprises in this part 2. Again, top 16, like we've got with the M.E.N. And at number 16, this did this did surprise me. These are based on my scores, based on playing 14 or featuring 14 games. Yeah, it's Mr. Jesus is bottom of the pile. Jesus 6.25 average, so it puts him in 16th place. He actually was 7th in my part 1. He actually finished 7th in part 1. He's actually finished 16th in part 2. Dreadful. Number 15. Mr. Consistency, because he was number 15 also in part 1. Benjamin Mendy. Obviously with his 7 games, he averages 6.36. Number 13, and this was my shock. My number 1, my best player from the part 1 of the season is number 30. He's joint 13th from the second part of the season. Ferner, he's there, joint 13th. Played 9 games, average of 6.44. So he's gone from number 1 down to joint 13th, sharing that with Mr. Garcia, who didn't feature in part 1 because he didn't play enough games to qualify. But Fernet and Garcia both down there at 6.44 ratings. Right, number 12. Again, he was number 9 in part 1. Wasn't his greatest season, as I said, but I thought he'd fared a little bit better after lockdown, but perhaps not. Bernardo at number 12 with an average of 6.55. Again, that was based on 10 games. And we've got joint 10th. We've got 2 tying for 10, fighting it out. We've got a guy who didn't feature in part 1 because he had a certain injury. Yes, Mr. Laporte is joint 10th, 6.58. And who's he joint 10th with? Well, he's joint 10th with Mr. Mahrez, who's dropped from 5th in part 1. He's now down to joint 10th, so not the greatest after lockdown, and that sort of reflected on the fact he seemed to fizzle out. In Pep's mind as well as he got to the crucial part of the season. Right, we're officially into the top 10 now, aren't we? At number 10 in part 1, at number 9 in part 2. So again, fairly consistent, Mr. Rodri, which doesn't surprise me because he does seem quite consistent. He's sort of there on the verge, and he never quite does anything to be player of the man of the match, but he's never that bad that he gets bad things against him. So yeah, Rodri's on 6.58 out of 10. Number 8, again, not a surprise. He's not his greatest season. He was 12th on part 1. He's now 8th on part 2. So a little bit better for Mr. Edison, although he obviously let himself down with the final game of this season, didn't he, a little bit. But yeah, he's up in 8th, so that's not too bad. And a lot of people have been critical, but I don't think he's had such a bad season. I think he's done okay this season. At number 7... well, he was 19th from part 1, and he's dragged himself up to number 7. It's Mr. Gundogan, number 7. He finished 7th in part 2 of the season, and he scores 6.7 out of 10. Nearly into the top 5, aren't we? Well, we've got Mr. at number 6, again, quite consistent. He was 11th in part 1. But he's now down to 6th place, Mr. Cancelo. Obviously, he gets a rating of 6.81 average from yours truly. Into the top 5. Right, number 5 is your favourite. Not been mentioned yet, probably not. Number 5. Again, he was 18th in part 1 of the season, this guy. 18th, I don't believe it now, but he was, I'm sorry. It's Mr. Sterling. Yeah, he's come in at number 5 on part 2 of the season. He scores 7 out of 10. So he's the first of the 5 who scores 7 out of 10. Absolutely fantastic. I might have said 4 before, but I've got 5 players who score 7 or more, because Sterling obviously just got 7. I think he was rounded up to 7, so that's probably why I was a little bit confused. Right, in at number 4. Who have we got in at number 4? Well, he was number 2 in part 1, so he not as impressive part 2 of the season. Phil Foden, the Stockport Iniesta, 7.04, so he's in at number 4. Number 3. There we go, number 3. KDB, number 3. He was 3 in the part 1. He's number 3 in part 2, but he was snuck in between him and someone else. So Kevin De Bruyne, 7.04, but he played a game more than Foden. That's why I've put him above Foden, even though obviously they share the same average rating of 7.04. But KDB had featured in 13 games. Mr. Foden featured in 12. So I'll give KDB 3rd spot. And in 2nd spot, well, this is a climb, isn't it? He was 8th in the part 1 of the season. Mr. Walker, yeah, Mr. Walker. and I think that doesn't surprise a few people. I think he sort of was impressing people by the end of this restart, to be honest with you. I think he impressed quite a few people with his form. In his 12 games, he averages 7.08, and he finishes second, Mr. Walker. But yeah, you know it, don't you? You know it. You know the number one, my number one, the Manchester Evening News number one. Again, sentimentality has nothing to do with it. This guy has earned this place this season as player of the season for the second part. He only finished sixth in the first part, but it's not very good. But he's come back with a bang, hasn't he, as he left us, as he completed his career with Manchester City, his last 14 games. He played in 10 of them. Of course, David Silva's number one. And he kicked some butt as well. He was 7.4 out of 10, well ahead, almost over 3 points ahead of the second place Mr. Walker. So he went from sixth in part one to first in part two. So there you go. There's only 2 players appeared in the top 5 for both parts of the 1920 season. Mr. Silva wasn't one of them. As I said, he finished sixth. He finished sixth in part one. And the 2 players who both featured in the top 5, who were my joint players of the season, probably, apart from David Silva, because I'm going to give it him anyway, because obviously he deserves it for who he is. But yeah, it is Mr. KDB and Phil Foden. They're the sort of joint, if you like, the most consistent players for the 2019-20 season. But as far as part 2 of this season concerned, David Silva was way ahead of everybody else on scores. The bottom 5 do show how stats are funny, don't they? The bottom 5, if you look at the bottom 5, if you combine parts 1 and 2 of the season, fifth from bottom, we've got Bernardo. Obviously, he's got a combined position of 20, 30 if you take his part 1 and part 2 together. He's 21 in total. So you got Bernardo. Would he get rid of him? No, would he get rid of Bernardo? You can't get rid of Bernardo, but he's fifth bottom. Fourth bottom, you got Jesus, 23. I mean, you combine his two positionings, it's 23. I mean, again, would you get rid of Jesus? No, I wouldn't get rid of Jesus. I mean, keep Jesus. He's certainly, even though he's quite low down there near the bottom on parts 1 and 2, I thought he'd had quite a good season. Third from bottom, Sterling. Again, same as Jesus, a combined positioning of 23. Again, would you get rid of Raheem Sterling? No. Could do with him scoring goals from 6 yards out when he's got an open net, but apart from that, you keep Sterling, wouldn't you? And second from bottom, does this reflect the fact I'm not his biggest fan, although I have a lot of faith in Pep, and Pep loves him. I mean, Pep loves this guy. He's obviously either got something on Pep or he just loves him because he's a brilliant footballer, and I've heard other people say he is. Second from bottom was Gundogan, a combined position of 26, so again, he's not my fave. Yeah, I'd get rid of him, but I don't think in a million years while Pep is there, he's going to get rid of him. So that's Gundogan to say. He's not my favourite. He could go tomorrow for me. No offence, my friend, but I've just never really warmed to you. Right, and the bottom of the pile, could you sort of figure that out? Yeah, Benjamin Mendy. Combined positioning of 30. I mean, yeah, I think most people have been sort of thinking about him going, haven't they? So I wouldn't be averse to that, to be honest with you, with Benjamin Mendy. I don't think Cancelo's done any worse than Benjamin Mendy, and he's not a natural left back. But we did see signs of Mendy, didn't we? But if he's got this injury thing sorted, but Pep didn't fancy him at the end of the season, did he? Pep didn't fancy him at all, so that perhaps tells you a lot anyway as well. Anyone else who won't be missed that didn't quite come into the calculations? Well, we think Garcia's going, don't we? I've not heard anything as I'm recording this, but again, not enough. He didn't do enough games in part 1 to qualify. But again, I wasn't overly impressed. A lot of people like him. I'm not overly impressed with Garcia, to be honest with you. So if he does go, it's not going to worry me one iota. Mahrez, well, 5th in part 1. Surprised me finishing the top 5 in part 1, but part 2 he finished 10th. So again, it looks as though Pep's fell out with him a little bit. So is Mahrez going to be, again, if he went, I wouldn't be too disappointed. Zinchenko, yeah, I mean, he was 20th in part 1. He was the bottom rated player in part 1 of this season. In part 2, he only played 6 games. Well, he did average 6.5 out of 10, which wasn't too bad. But I think it may be time for him to go and look for new pastures, I think, to do him good as well. Nothing to do with City. I think it'll be good for Zinchenko as well to move on. Otamendi, again, had been hinted that he's going anyway. He was 13th in part 1. He only played 4 games in part 2, but he didn't let us down. 6.75 out of 10, so he scored quite well. So he did a job for us in part 2 of the season. So again, you know, if he wants a payday, I wouldn't say goodbye to, you know, I wouldn't mind saying goodbye to Otamendi with my best wish. All these guys have got my best wishes, but Otamendi can sort of go and get a last little payday, can't he? Mr. Stones, again, it's been hinted that he's going to stay and sign a new contract. He was 17th in part 1. 17th. He did qualify for part 1. And in part 2, played 4 games, 6.25 out of 10, so one of the lowest scores again, but he's not getting a run of games. Injury prone, this is the problem. How's he going to get a run of games if he keeps getting injuries left, right and centre? So, yeah, to me, he was sort of joint bottom on scores, so he would have been joint bottom if that 4 games had been 8 games and he scored 6.25 out of 10, he would have been bottom again, so 17th in part 1. So for me, I think perhaps Mr. Stones, there's been a few rumours people are after him, perhaps should go, so there you go. So Pep, what am I going to do about Pep? Part 1, as I said, I don't think I scored Pep. I mean, you might see it on my review. Part 1, he put us in a good position, didn't he? Apart from the league, he put us in a good position in the FA Cup and the Champions League, and he won us the Carabao Cup, obviously. So I would have sort of gone at 6.5 to 7 as a score for part 1 of the season, but sadly part 2, we just shambled out the FA Cup, didn't we? That was pretty poor, to be honest with you. And we sort of just give up without fighting the Champions League as well. So as far as part 2 of the season concerned, I think I've already said I think Pep will go. People are quite confident he'll extend, but I think he'll see out next season, and might see the guy who's going to take over come along and help him out next season. But I hope I'm wrong, because I think he's still got plenty. But I mean, it's 4 years, isn't it? And he has a reason he doesn't stay at clubs long, and I think the reason is sort of, we've seen some of that this season, unfortunately. But yeah, part 2, I'm going to give Pep 5 out of 10. I'm sorry, Pep. I just think you let the team. I'm not saying the players aren't to blame as well, but I think the way tactically, I think you looked as though you were up for it early doors, but after restart, you were tweaking things, bringing on substitutions on 55 minutes, etc. And then all of a sudden, you just went to pot when it comes to the crux of the season. So, yeah, 5 out of 10. Let me know what you think about Pep, whether you agree that anyway. So there you go. That's my little thing for my final episode of the 2019-20 season. Well done, El Mago, for winning the Player of the Part season, season 2, and well done KDB and Foden for overall being perhaps the joint winners. Yeah, I think I'll have to say I can't really give it David Silva for the obviously the 14 games in part 2. All congratulations to him. But overall for the season, parts 1 and 2 combined, I think I'm going to give a joint player of the season to KDB and Phil Foden. I mean, most people give it KDB. I think he's just won player of the year, hasn't he? But yeah, I'm going to give the Stockport Iniesta joint billing with him as well. So that'll be fantastic. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please check my little links on screen. If you're into movies, I do little movie vlogs as well, and TV drama vlogs and information vlogs of DVDs, etc. And if you can visit my little website, moviegamenostalgia.com, for all rare DVDs, movie posters and board games, absolutely fantastic, much appreciated. Right, well, I'll be back when there's plenty of City history stuff coming out, and I'll be back with a City present very, very soon. I've got one earmarked already that you'll sort of see in the next few days anyway. A city present's going to be there very, very soon. Thanks for watching today. Let me know in the comments if you agree, or it surprises you to say it's just based on scores. I mean, some of those things did surprise me. It's just based on scores you do at the time, and you look back and you think, well, that seems a bit low, but you can all it's statistics, isn't it? At the end of the day, you can do anything with statistics and numbers. But I hope you found that interesting and quite enjoyable. I had as much fun as I did putting them together and reading them out, especially M.E.N stuff as well. And what did you think of their things? A little bit different to mine. Weren't loads different, but a little bit different to my ratings anyway. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good rest of the day. Have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your family. More importantly, let's all look after each other. Until we meet again on another citizen vlog, please stay safe, blues. And I'll see you all again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.